Let me tell you about a dime that quietly slipped into circulation, but now commands attention on collector forums, auction galleries, and specialist chat rooms alike. You might think a 1967 Roosevelt dime is just another shiny bit of pocket change, but under the right light and in the hands of the right eyes, it reveals a story of Cold War coinsmanship, minting oddities, and market intrigue. Over the next few minutes, I'll guide you through the journey of this humble 10-cent piece, from its design roots to its headline-grabbing auction prices, so you can spot the rare survivors that could be hiding among your loose change. The Roosevelt dime first saw the light of day in 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt just months after his death. By 1967, the United States Mint in Philadelphia was deep into producing these coins in vast quantities, well over 350 million that year. The coin's basic blueprint, struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition, avoided precious metals, making it cheap to produce and sturdy enough for everyday use. But while the design stayed consistent, minor tweaks in die preparation and planchet sourcing created subtle variations that only keen-eyed collectors and specialists could detect. Those tiny differences, sometimes just a die polish line here or a misaligned date there, became the difference between a dime worth face value and one that trades for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Most 1967 dimes you encounter are unremarkable: smooth rims, crisply struck dates, and the familiar profile of Roosevelt on the obverse. Yet a handful display doubled dies, die cracks, or misaligned mint marks that elevate them to error status. One of the most sought after is the doubled die obverse, where the lettering in Liberty or the digits in the date look as if stamped twice, slightly offset. Identifying this requires examining the coin under magnification, looking for crisp, distinct shadows on the lettering rather than the uniform, single-strike appearance of a normal die. Another key variant is the off-center strike, where up to 30% of the coin's design can be missing, revealing a crescent-shaped field and a rim encroaching into the design area. Collectors prize these coins not for their face value, but for the story they tell about the minting process on that particular day in 1967. When it comes to market value, standard business strikes in average circulated conditions still trade for just their face value, or often a small premium. Think 15 to 25 cents for a clean example graded about good, 4 or fine 12. But once you step into the realm of errors and top-quality specimens, prices climb quickly. A certified MS-67 full band specimen, that is, showing strong horizontal bands on the reverse's torch, can fetch between $20 and $40 in today's market. Examples graded MS-68 or higher are extremely scarce. Only a handful have been slabbed at that level, and some have sold for $100 or more at specialist auctions. Meanwhile, authentic double die errors, depending on severity and eye appeal, can range from $75 for a modest example to over $500 for a dramatically doubled 1967 D-dime in pristine, high-detail condition. Beyond numbers and grades, there's a human element that gives these dimes their real allure. In the late 1990s, a New England collector stumbled upon an off-center 1967 dime rolled up in a bank teller's coin tray. Unlike today's more automated systems, the 90s still saw manual handling that let such oddballs slip through. That particular dime, missing exactly 25% of its rim and date, became the centerpiece of a regional coin show display and later appeared in Coin World magazine, sparking a surge of interest in other collectors who began hunting through bank rolls and scratch piles for similar finds. Word of mouth led to a small subculture of enthusiasts focusing solely on 1967 errors, and before long, specialist dealers were offering to buy whole rolls sight unseen, banking on their luck at finding another prize. Naturally, the condition of your 1967 dime matters more than its error or variety if you're chasing top-dollar values. A dime that's been in circulation for decades, bearing light scratches, slight rim dents, and a muted luster, holds interest only as a curiosity. But one that's been tucked away in a mint set, retained its original satin finish, or found its way into a protective flip soon after striking, can display sharp details on Roosevelt's hair and the torch's bands on the reverse. In those mint state examples, you'll see deep mirrors in the fields and bold, frosty devices that practically glow under direct lighting. Even within the mint state scale, a grade MS 65 is a solid entry point for collectors, commanding roughly $10 to $15. At MS 66, values double, and at MS 67 you're in a three figures territory for coins with impeccable strike and minimal contact marks. Let's not forget about the role of grading companies in elevating the status of these dimes. Back in the 1970s and 80s, the idea of third-party grading was just gaining traction. At that time, a pristine 1967 dime might have been overshadowed by earlier, silver issues. Today, thanks to PCGS and NGC holding certification drives and showcasing registry sets, collectors vie to climb leaderboards, pushing top-condition 1967 dimes to premium levels. When one of these coins appears in an NGC registry auction with a flashy plus grade, it becomes a must-have for registry enthusiasts, at times selling for double or triple what the raw market would suggest. Over the years, online marketplaces have also reshaped the story. A decade ago, finding a quality 1967 double die meant visiting local shows and networking with dealers. Now, digital platforms show dozens of listings with photos and grading reports at any given time. That accessibility has increased competition, but it's also made pricing more transparent. A quick search might reveal a few MS 67 full-band specimens priced at $40, a couple of MS 68s at $125, and an odd error piece, say, a die crack variety, listed at $60. Knowing what to look for, you can set up price alerts and notifications, which means that if a truly exceptional piece shows up under market value, you've got a chance to snag it. With that in mind, handling and storage become critical. Once you've spotted a candidate, perhaps a faint band on the reverse that hints at a full band designation, avoid rubbing or cleaning. Tossing coins into a flip or soft plastic sleeve preserves their natural luster and minimizes the risk of new hairlines or contact marks. Collectors who've protected their 1,967 dimes for decades now find those original mint state survivors commanding the highest bids, whereas an identical coin that's been carelessly stored might plateau at a lower grade and value. When you scan the coin under a loupe, the portrait of Roosevelt should appear crisp, with distinct separation between strands of hair and defined edges on the torch's flame. If you see softness or blended lines, you know you're looking at a lower-grade piece, still collectible, but not the high-end example that draws headlines. Keep an eye out, too, for planchet anomalies. Slight lamination flaws or metal streaks can occur when the copper core isn't fully bonded to the nickel cladding. Those pieces sit in a gray area, technically errors, but often less desirable than a sharp full-band MS 67. That's the charm of the 1967 Roosevelt dime. Unpretentious on the surface, but brimming with layers of nuance once you know where to look. Keep your loupe ready, your grading guides at hand, and your eyes peeled for the telltale signs that turn everyday metal into a collector's dream. And when you find that special coin, you'll carry not just a rare piece of American coinage, but a story that stretches from the mint floor to the modern marketplace, all in the span of 10 cents. Shifting gears from 1967's subtle die quirks, let's dive into the 1969 Roosevelt dime, a coin that, on the surface, looks like everyday pocket change but hides a spectrum of minting surprises, error rarities, and market twists that seasoned collectors live for. You've played the close-reading game with the 67. Now get ready for the 69, where double dies, repunched mint marks, and planchet irregularities can turn a dime into a six-figure story, if you know where to look. The Roosevelt dime arrived in 1946 as a tribute to FDR, but by 1969 the U.S. Mint was wrestling with rising copper prices and pressing demand for circulating coinage in a turbulent era of inflation. Philadelphia and Denver presses combined struck roughly 350 million dimes each in 1969, plus another 220 million in San Francisco proof sets. All bore the familiar copper-nickel clad composition introduced in 1965, replacing silver but promising durability. In practice, however, variations in die production and planchet quality that year created a playground for error hunters. The die hubs used to transfer Roosevelt's profile and the torch's intricate flame patterns sometimes left trace hub doubling. The result? Coins showing faint ghost images or doubling around, "In God We Trust," and the date, subtle to the naked eye, but unmistakable under 5 or 10 times magnification. Collectors most often spotlight the Philadelphia double die obverse, where the letters in Liberty and the digits 1969 appear slightly shadowed. Unlike the bold, textbook doubling of some later years, this 69 variety can look more like a thin outline hugging the primary lettering. That subtlety makes authentic examples scarce. Recent tallies suggest fewer than 1,000 known, and even fewer in mint state. Over at the Mint's San Francisco facility, proof dimes sometimes arrived with a different flavor of doubling, paired with mirrored fields so deep you could see your reflection beneath the frosting. These proofs, struck on specially polished planchets, sometimes show such pronounced hub doubling that they look like tiny silver canvases bearing miniature engravings of error art. But double dies aren't the only game. Keep an eye out for repunched mint marks on Denver and San Francisco pieces. In '69, the Denver D was punched twice, sometimes faintly below and slightly to the left of the primary mark. On rare occasions, a third strike overlapped at a different angle, leaving a tiny starburst of metal around the letter. These RPM, repunched mint mark, dimes rarely appear in circulated rolls, since quality control usually spotted the more egregious overlapping. Today, collectors prize an MS 65 RPM D example at roughly $75, but you'll see prices climb into the $150 to $200 range for razor-sharp MS 67 pieces that clearly display the secondary punch without compromising the coin's overall appeal. While most 1969 dimes slip through life with nothing more than light wear, the off-center strikes from that year deserve a special nod. You'll occasionally find a dime missing anywhere from 5% to 40% of its design, revealing that telltale crescent of blank planchet hugging the rim. Some of the most dramatic examples in the '69 series have sold for upwards of $300 at auction when the off-centering hits that sweet spot between noticeable error and enough remaining design to identify the date and mint. Anything past 50% off-center tends to lose appeal because too much context is gone. The best pieces strike a balance, showing an unmistakable error but still leaving Roosevelt and the torch largely intact. Auction records underscore just how hot the 1969 varieties can get. At a 2023 specialist sale, a Philadelphia double die obverse in MS 67 full bands brought $2,400 hammer, an astronomical premium for a coin that began life as 10 cents worth of metal. Around the same time, an RPM D graded MS 68 surfaced, carrying 3 distinct punches visible under magnification. It commanded $1,750 from a registry collector aiming to complete a mint mark set. Those headline numbers, however, represent the tippy-top echelon. For most collectors, finding a nice MS 65 double die will set you back $150 to $250, while solid MS 66 error pieces can be had in the $300 to $500 bracket, depending on eye appeal and certification. Behind the numbers lie stories that add human texture to the '69 dime saga. In the mid-2010s, a retired postal clerk in Ohio discovered a handful of repunched mint mark dimes bundled in a box of employee change leftover. Upon realizing the odd shadow beneath the D, she quietly amassed a trove of 10 before listing them online. Collectors swarmed the auction, generating a buzz that rippled through auction houses and local clubs alike. A decade later, those coins still trade hands, and many show up in reference collections as textbook examples of Denver's busiest mint in the late '60s. The condition of your 1969 dime, as always, makes or breaks its value. Circulated examples with average wear, soft fields, faintly legible mottos, and dulled devices remain around face value or maybe a small premium for the off-center errors. But a dime surviving in a mint set or untouched in its original flip can display the kind of softly satiny finish and robust mirrors that light up under LED lamps. In those specimens, Roosevelt's hairlines stand out in crisp relief, and the torch's bands show clear separation from the flat fields. At MS 66 full bands, such a specimen often fetches $30 to $50. At MS 67, you can expect $100 to $150, and MS 68? Exceptionally rare. only a handful slabbed at that level. So you're looking at $500 or more for the best of the best. Not every rarity comes from die work, though. Planchet flaws show up, too. Lamination errors where the copper core separates ever so slightly from the nickel cladding, creating tiny peeling flakes or streaks. Rarely, you'll encounter a planchet clip, where a small crescent is shaved off before striking, leading to fully missing edges that echo the off-center look but can be distinguished by their smooth, curved boundaries. These planchet anomalies attract attention in specialist circles, especially when they're trapped in high-grade, proof-like condition. You might see a lamination piece priced at $50 if lightly circulated, but double that for a crisp, uncirculated example where the flaw appears under the mint luster. Online marketplaces and grading services have reshaped the 69 dimes value narrative. A decade ago, finding genuine doubled dies meant in-person shows and printed reference guides. Now, high-resolution photos and slab scans let you eyeball potential errors from your living room. But beware, photo lighting can mask or exaggerate doubling. Always request an obverse scan at 10x magnification, ideally under diffused light, to reveal fine lines without harsh reflections. Collectors who've sharpened their inspection techniques gain a real edge, spotting minor doubling that less experienced hunters might overlook. Condition-based variations extend beyond mint state grades. Even within circulated grades, an XF45 double die can fetch $40 to $60, far above face value, whereas an F12 piece might languish at $20. That gap underscores how surface preservation and strike sharpness amplify error premiums. In practice, many error hunters invest in a modest microscope or a jeweler's loupe, scanning rolls at home and pulling suspects into trays labeled to be graded. It's a simple system. Log every candidate, photograph under consistent lighting, and compare against known reference images available on collector forums and error coin books. In the end, the 1969 Roosevelt dime stands as a testament to the quirks of mass production. Millions struck, yet a few thousand errors and varieties that spark collector passion. Whether you're chasing a subtle doubled die, a dramatic off-center, or a planchet that couldn't quite hold it together, the thrill comes from knowing that a coin worth 10 cents can carry a story, and sometimes a value, that stretches into the thousands. Keep your eyes sharp and your spirit adventurous, because with the 1969 dime, every roll and every tray holds a chance for discovery.